In 2017, the Bulls front office at the time, which we like to call Garpax, signaled a rebuild for the franchise by trading their best player and all-star in Jimmy Butler in exchange for Zach Lavine, who was coming off an ACL injury, Chris Dunn, who at the time was heading into his second season, and the Wolves' number 7 pick, which they used to select Lauri Markkanen. Of course, at the time of the trade, most argued that the Bulls had been fleeced by the Wolves and sending them a multi-all-star in his prime in Jimmy Butler. But as the season went on, and following the Butler trade in that season of 2018, Lauri Markkanen soon looked to be a promising prospect that could stretch the floor, shoot from the outside, but also had the ability and the strength to drive inside and grab rebounds. In his rookie season, he actually averaged 15.2 points per game and 7.5 rebounds per game at the age of 20. The following season, in his sophomore year, he looked to show even further progress, averaging 18.7 points per game and 9 rebounds, and even improved his passing numbers as well. And things started to look like the Bulls had a star in the making and may have even won that trade based on the trajectory and future potential we were seeing from Markkanen, but things all but changed the following season when Jim Boylan was made the permanent coach of the team and started to utilize Markkanen as a spot-up shooter only, and Markkanen naturally wasn't happy with his role. His morale wasn't the same as it used to be, and of course his performance saw a regression as well. Now, most people chalk this up to terrible coaching, and Lauri would end up having a bounce back year once the Bulls hired Billy Donovan. Even myself included was of that opinion, and despite a strong start to the season, he suffered an injury and has really struggled to find his game ever since, and even more recently, he was benched for the first time in his career. So it leads me to the question of, what is Lauri Markkanen's future with the Chicago Bulls? And that's what I want to talk about in today's video. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Before I get into the video, so guys, if you missed it, I uploaded a video earlier this morning that Billy Donovan had been fired by the Chicago Bulls because today is April 1st, and I thought I would throw a little April Fool's joke at you guys for fun, because why not? Well, most people took to it pretty well, but I did have some people who found the video a little distasteful, stating that, they're unsubscribing, and this video was by far the most dislikes that I've ever received on a video. So apologies if the video offended any of you in any way or gave you a heart attack in thinking that Donovan had actually been fired, but it was just a joke. Let's try to not take ourselves so seriously sometimes. My intention was not to make anybody mad. It was just an April Fool's joke. But anyway, as I mentioned at the end of that video, I would be back to my normal content, and for the content in this video, we're going to be talking about Lauri Markkanen, as I mentioned. So I'm sure most of you already know, but if you don't, Lauri Markkanen was due to receive an extension on his rookie scale deal from the Bulls prior to the start of the season, and the Bulls front office and Lauri's camp did not agree to terms, which will now make Lauri a restricted free agent this offseason, meaning any team will have the ability to extend him an offer, and the Bulls will then have 48 hours to match the highest offer to keep him on the team. Now, if you had asked me whether I thought the Bulls would re-sign Lauri in free agency, I would have said with about 90% confidence that they would. My assumption was that Lauri likely wanted too much money after a season where he greatly underperformed, and rather than Arturas meeting his demands for compensation, he treated it as more of a prove-it season to see how he does and see what he fetches in the open market in the offseason. It would then give the Bulls control to match any offer or let him walk if some team way overpays him. But fast forward to today, and I can honestly say I'm not sure the Bulls intend to keep Lauri Markkanen beyond this season. I was a little surprised to see that he wasn't moved before the deadline. There were a lot of rumors for a Lauri and Lonzo swap, which I wasn't that on board with, given that Lauri and Lonzo, Lonzo will essentially be a restricted free agent this offseason, just like Lauri. But after the Bulls traded for Vucevic and really signaled, hey, we're here to make moves at the deadline, I thought it was very possible that he might be looking to blow the whole team up before the deadline, a roster that Garpax had constructed, and he wanted to make it his own. So I did expect to see news of Lauri being moved hours before the deadline, but the deadline passed. Lauri started one game with Vucevic and was subsequently benched right after. Now, he started last night's game, but that was mainly because Lavine was injured. Otherwise, he likely would have come off the bench in last night's game. So Wendell Carter Jr., Chandler Hutchinson, Daniel Gafford, all of the recent Garpax draft selections gone. Coby White benched, and now Markkanen benched. it leads you to believe that Arturas likely won't be hanging on to these guys for very long. These guys meaning Markkanen and Coby White, two players that Garpax had drafted. Now Markkanen has played decently ever since being benched, still struggling to knock down his shots consistently, but he's been looking considerably more aggressive on offense in his driving to the basket as well as crashing the boards. But the real question mark around Lauri is his defense. He started to improve upon his defense marginally at the start of the season, but since then, he's almost been a liability on defense. And part of the reason for that is, why Donovan hasn't been starting Lauri in the closing minutes of games, and that's just because he is not able to stay in front of his men. Now, going into the offseason, the Bulls' primary focus has to be on defense and improving at the point guard position. I've already talked about Lonzo Ball and the rumors surrounding him and the Bulls in prior videos, so I won't go into that here. But all in all, there are a lot of point guards available on the market this summer, and defensive point guards as well. But the problem is the Bulls not having the cap space to bring in said point guard now that we have Vucevic and his contract in the books, and if the Bulls still want to sign Lauri, who will eat up some of the salary cap space as well. Can they make the numbers work by bringing in a top point guard and keeping Markkanen, or is it worth to keep Markkanen at this point given his defense is subpar and you really need a defensive power forward to pair alongside Vucevic? So does Markkanen fit with this roster now after the trades that were made? Well, here's my perspective on this. By the Bulls benching Lauri, and not saying that it wasn't justified, because Lauri was simply not playing well and deserved to be benched, especially when his skill set didn't fit the starting lineup that was so offensive heavy with minimal defensive effort. But because Lauri is now coming off the bench, hasn't been playing well, it's possible, and this might be a stretch, but it's possible Lauri doesn't receive that many offers from other teams in free agency, or at least not high offers where the Bulls would have to pass on matching. If you look at the 2021 top free agent lists online, you would see Lauri Markkanen somewhere in the 10 to 15 range in top free agents around the league at the start of the season. And most of these lists now have Lauri in the 20 to 22 range of top free agents. So in a way, the league, meaning other teams around the league, might be hesitant to give up a fat contract to someone like Lauri, who has had problems with injuries, hasn't been shooting threes consistently, which was something that he was initially known for. He can't play defense, he doesn't have a post-up game, and hasn't been rebounding the ball all that well these past 2 seasons. So I would be shocked if any NBA team offers him $20 million a year or more, which was reportedly what he was seeking in an extension from the Bulls. And if they were to offer him that much, no, the Bulls can't match. First of all, because it hamstrings them in terms of cap space, and second, he isn't worth that much. Now, initially when Markkanen was balling at the beginning of the season, scoring at a very efficient rate, I thought, man, the Bulls might have screwed up in not signing him to an extension, because he's likely going to command even more money now. And I would have said $20 million a year at the time that was a fair price for someone like Markkanen. But currently, given where we're at and the deficiencies the Bulls have and their need for defense and a facilitator on this roster, Markkanen just doesn't fit the team. As much as I hate to say it, because I've always been such a defender of Markkanen all season, but with the recent trades made, I don't see what his role is in the future of this franchise, other than being a stretch forward coming off the bench that can get you some solid scoring and floor spacing here and there. If I had to put a price tag on what I would be comfortable with paying Markkanen if we were to re-sign him, I would say probably around $15 million a year max. I would prefer it to fall more in that $12 million a year range. Now, all that being said, I do still see potential from Lauri with him in the right situation and fit with a given team. And I even think he could still continue to grow and develop on the Bulls and turn out to be a solid player for the future of this team, because teams can always use a stretch big man, but he's got to be more efficient in hitting shots from the outside. And above all, the guy has to at least somewhat improve his defense, because lately it has been very, very bad. What do you guys think, though? Do you think the Bulls will re-sign Markkanen, or do you even want them to re-sign him? Do you think the Bulls will end up overpaying him or just letting him walk in free agency? Let me know in the comments, and as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.